Everton won, West Ham won. Welcome back to another Babbling match review show. Really poor game to watch. I'm definitely glad I wasn't a neutral watching that, but it was really poor from both teams, to be honest, from a quality perspective. Not much separated. I think a draw was a fair result on the balance of play. And yeah, there were still a few teething issues. And I think a lot of West Ham fans are still frustrated by the lack of goal scoring chances West Ham are now creating under Graham Potter. But defensively, we've been much better, but there's still a lot of things we need to work on, which we're going to go through this review show and break down. So if you do enjoy it, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and let's start with the lineups. I think most people expected it to be something similar to this. We've been playing this 3-5-2 formation for the last 3 or 4 games ever since it worked away at Arsenal. The only kind of change we saw was Paqueta coming in for Alvarez, and also Mavropanos at the back coming in for Cresswell, and Emerson for Scarles at left wing back. So the idea was the same, the approach was the same, but I think context needs to be taken into how we approach games. I think away at Arsenal, you can afford to play as passive as we did in the first half, which we're going to allude to as well. But I think there is a frustration that there is a lack of emphasis to attack or create opportunities from an attacking perspective. And these were the stats from the game. Again, it wasn't a high level, entertaining match by any stretch of the imagination. Everton just shading possession with 54%. Expected goals were slightly higher than ours at 1, with ours at 0.83. 13 shots to our 10, 5 shots on target for each side, 1 big chance each, and we missed one of our big chances. So you can see there from the momentum as well. The first half, Everton were definitely the team that were putting on the pressure. Second half, the first 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes was a different story, but then it went back to that same pattern to end the game. So I think the biggest frustration I had against this, coming up against David Moyes for the first time as well, was how passive we were. I think Everton definitely looked at how we were quite poor against Newcastle when we were pressed quite high up. Obviously, Eddie Howe went with a man-to-man press against us at the London Stadium, and it worked really well because it stopped us from building out from the back and finding those pockets of spaces in the style that we're trying to play under Graham Potter. But Everton were quite aggressive in their press in the first half, and West Ham are just way too passive. I mean, you can see it from here. This is 18 minutes into the game. We were definitely lining up with this back three, as you can see, but the lack of dynamism and ball carrying ability in that midfield three just makes this a very blunt formation, how we're trying to play, because Ward-Prowse is at the base, who's almost the one that's going to be dictating play, keeping things ticking along. Paqueta's meant to be the more creative asset, but he's not someone that's going to drive with the ball. And Souček, while he did come up with a really important goal, when we're in possession, it can be quite detrimental to how we want to build and play up, because he almost goes as a second striker behind Bowen or behind Kudus and doesn't really interfere with this middle third of the pitch at all. It's only when we get into those final areas or final thirds of the pitch does he come alive, and we see the effectiveness of Thomas Souček. So when we're trying to build up in these sequences here, it makes it even more difficult because we're effectively playing with one midfield short. And then you're asking someone like Kudus to drop in and drive with the ball, or Jared Bowen, or you're, again, placing a lot of emphasis on your wing backs. And, if you're Everton, just forced the ball wide and then triggered a press. That's exactly what they were doing in the first half. And it meant that we couldn't really break through that Everton, midfield or defensive line. And yeah, we were just really passive. And you can see here, as we move the ball forwards to Todibo on the right-hand side, there's just a lack of options, really. Everton were just very well structured. It was really easy for them to press onto us. And we found ourselves in situations like this where, we were getting the ball out wide. They were immediately pressing, whether it was Mikalenko on this side, or O'Brien on the right-hand side. They were just going man-to-man in these sequences here. And it meant, because the likes of Souček wasn't really getting involved in play here, and that's not his strength, we're effectively playing a man down. So you can see here, Everton, 4 players around our 3. And it meant just we had to go backwards and sideways, or we were forced to go long. So to be honest, that was the pattern of the first half. And I think we struggled to create chances. I know we almost scored from an own goal from a corner, and Bowen had a nice volley that was saved over by Pickford. But other than that, it was way too passive from West Ham, way too easy for Everton to play against us. And yeah, we were just too passive. That is the best word for it. And Everton were trying to capitalize on it. I don't think they created much, but even here you can see there was a clear game plan that as soon as Kudus got the ball, they were straight on to Kudus, like 2 or 3 players every time. Didn't really matter where in the pitch it was. They were highlighting him as the danger. And when he had the back to play, Everton were trying to swarm around him. I mean, you can see the intent from Everton here. Look, they're just straight onto him not allowing Kudus to drive with the ball. Obviously, David Moyes very aware of the dangers that Kudus can give off when he's driving with the ball. And it was forcing us into going backwards, like we did here, and it was forcing West Ham into mistakes. This is where Kilman, the ball into Kilman isn't the best from Kudus, and then he has to try and stretch, and it's a poor pass from Kilman. Everton then turn over the ball, but you can just see the difference the difference in intent between the two teams. As soon as Everton turn that ball up quite high up the pitch, they're ready to go. They're ready to press, and they're ready to try and create a goal scoring opportunity as fast as they can, as we saw time and time again under David Moyes, that fast transition. And that's exactly what they try and do. They get a ball into the box, and Decore's header's a weak one in the end, and Areola has a comfortable save. But it all comes from West Ham's passiveness. It comes from Everton's willingness, and also just a lack of quality across the pitch from West Ham in that first half. It was really abundantly clear that we were struggling. We were struggling with this build-up in the way we're playing, because we're effectively playing a back three with two wing-backs and a midfield free blanket with Kudus and Bowen up top. There just isn't much, as I said, there isn't much to bypass that midfield unless you're going to squeeze teams higher up the pitch and force mistakes and turnovers and then find those pockets of space, which we did in the second half. But in the first half, it was just way, way too easy for Everton. And they were just creating chance after chance, not meaningful chances, but they were creating chances. And it was all coming from our passiveness and our inability to keep the ball or try and break Everton down. And again, you'll be able to see it here, just how passive West Ham are. This wasn't easy for Everton to get into this situation. Everton worked the ball really, really easily into this final third, where they were putting crosses into the box. And I don't think we were stopping the crosses well enough in the first half, but you can just see how passive we really are. So any cross like this, again, it's a weak header in the end, and Areola deals with it quite comfortably. But because we're sitting back so deep and inviting that pressure and inviting that ball into the box, yes, we may deal with a lot of the aerial kind of duels that will come in. It just invites unnecessary pressure, and you lose control of a game in that scenario. And I actually think that's how we lost it in the end, lost it all 3 points in the end. It was due to that passive nature of how we were playing. But again, that was more circumstantial. 90th minute, you'd expect something like that to an extent, but not in the first half, in the first 20 minutes of a game. You should not be playing that passive away to a team that has struggled in front of goal and has struggled, to be honest, throughout this entirety of this season. So it was frustrating to see it happening time and time again. Again, half an hour into the game on this occasion, just way too passive from West Ham. We were almost just way too comfortable to just sit in this shape throughout the game. And it was just so easy. You can see here that back five structure. You've got Ward-Prowse, Souček, Paqueta, the midfield three, tucking in tight. But look at the space on the edge of the box for Everton to just work that towards. I mean, it's three simple passes in the end, which I'll show you in a second. But this is way, way too passive from West Ham to allow this to happen, and to almost feel like you're comfortable in this situation. Because yes, against Arsenal away, there's a circumstance where you may have to dig in like this because of how much quality Arsenal have, and then you want to try and break. But I don't think away at Everton, that's the right way to play. You should be pressing Everton high and forcing them into mistakes. But we just allowed them to play. And you'll be able to see here, they moved the ball to the right-hand side. They've just simply shifted West Ham across. And because we're so deep, O'Brien has so much space to let off a shot. And it's a good save. But it's it's an unnecessary shot that, this was way too easy for Everton to get into this situation. So that was the recurring theme of the first half. And I think we definitely found out that solution in the first 15, 20 minutes of the second half. And I think Graham Potter deserves credit for that, because there were a few tweaks that he made that meant we just put Everton on the back foot and started to create some chances of our own. But again, that first half, not good enough from West Ham. It was a really, really poor watching. Anyone that was watching that game or at the game, you would know. But the second half, as I said, was much better. We started a lot more encouraging, and it was the simple things. We were winning the second duels. We were pressing higher up the pitch, and we were, there was a bit of composure and quality on the ball. And we were getting certain players into certain situations in the final third where they would benefit the most. Notoriously, Lucas Paqueta. But yeah, we'll go into the second half here, because you can see exactly the difference between West Ham in the first half and the second, just from this clip in the 61st minute. Emerson really high up, pressing aggressively on O'Brien, not allowing him to turn around or find an easy pass. And, Jared Bowen coming across to help. And that's exactly what we do. We double up on him, win the ball. Emerson then recycles it into Ward-Prowse, and we shift across onto the other side of the pitch. And who's there to collect it? It's Todibo, one of the centre backs that was, again, if this was the first half, we weren't playing like this. We weren't playing as aggressive as we needed to be. And this was just forcing Everton into mistakes. And when I mentioned about Paqueta just before, this is what we tried to do more of in the second half. And this is what we did a lot more successfully in the second half, was getting Lucas Paqueta into the central areas of the pitch where he can create and start moving the ball forwards, because he is one of the most forward-thinking players at the club. He probably is the most forward-thinking players at the club from that midfield. So it just meant that, again, we see Souček there playing pretty much as a striker next to Kudus in this situation. It allowed him to bypass that because we had the bodies forward. In the first half, Souček was trying to go forwards, but it was just too isolating because we were way too passive, we were way too deep. So we're trying to build up in situations that Everton could just really easily press. But in this scenario here, again, Paqueta just draws in a couple of players, plays a nice through ball between the two of them. Kudus bounces it off Souček with a nice 1-2. And then we get into this situation here where Kudus just stretches out after a bad touch, plays the ball into Jared Bowen, who in that first, again, 15, 20 minutes of the second half was just drifting out to this left-hand side a bit where the space was opening up for him. And he gets a really, really good shot off, but it's a great save from Pickford again. So again, just from that intent, that mindset, that mentality to press higher and cause Everton problems, because we're not playing Arsenal away. They don't have the quality that they do. Yes, they may bypass our press on a couple of occasions, but more often than not, because we have that nice structure that Graham Potter's created within the last 2 months, I feel more confident. I feel a lot more confident of playing that style than we did under Lopetegui, because we didn't have that structure behind it. But now we do. I feel like we can afford to be a little bit more aggressive onto teams, especially when you're playing someone that's on the level of points with you in the Premier League, and again, not the best team in terms of quality on the ball in possession. So that's exactly how the goal comes as well. Just 5 minutes after that first clip, it's just the intent to play higher up the pitch. You can see it here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 West Ham bodies in this frame, really high up in the pitch and trying to win the ball back aggressively. And that's what we do. Emerson goes in, Bowen follows, Souček's playing there as well, ready to cut off the pass. Ward-Prowse has stepped up as well. Paqueta and Kudus in your frame there at the top. So we're going really aggressive onto Everton, and that then forced them to go long. And then we were winning the second balls. On this occasion, Mavropanos wins the first duel against Beto. And then the second duel, Paqueta gets up above his man, wins the header, wins the flick on. Souček, the third one in that instance, so Paqueta's flicked it on. Souček actually wins this ball here. And then we find ourselves in this position where we've won, 3 or 4 duels in a row, and we've recycled possession, and we're looking to make things happen. You can see there Wan-Bissaka darting through the middle, Kudus, Ward-Prowse, Souček are pretty much playing striker, Bones drifted out to the left-hand side. We're squeezing Everton back, and that's exactly what we did really, really well within that opening 15 to 20 minutes of the first half. And then we get ourselves in this position. Again, Jared Bowen's drifting out to that left-hand side, which is what he was trying to do a lot in the second half, and he was getting a lot of success from doing that. And we know Souček, again, his instant reaction is to get into the box and create havoc or cause havoc or try and find something to hurt Everton with. And Bowen, again, very, very direct, drives at the heart of that Everton defence, plays a nice ball into Souček. And the goal from Souček here is going to be extremely underrated because he does 2 things exceptionally well in this sequence. Number one is the touch. It's a fantastic touch to just set himself up. And then this bit here, which I love the most, he almost shimmies to go left, and then that just creates half a yard of space on his right foot to bend it into the bottom corner like he did. And the finish is absolutely fantastic. It really is, to bend it round. I think that's Tarkowski there that he's created the space from. And it's a really good finish. And yeah, I feel like at that point it was a deserved lead because of the circumstances of how we were playing in that opening 15, 20 minutes of the second half. And at this point, I wanted West Ham to continue controlling and continue playing in that same way, regardless of the result in that situation, because we were forcing Everton into mistakes. And all of the good stuff that Everton did in the first half was because of how passive West Ham were playing. Not to discredit what Everton did, because they were pressing us really well and they recognized how we were playing. But we were just so much better when we were playing 5, 10 yards, 15 yards higher up the pitch and putting them under pressure. And I feel like the quality in our team was higher than Everton's on the day for us to do that throughout the 90 minutes. And I feel like we could have cracked Everton again. We could have got another goal during that next 20-minute period. But as soon as we got that goal, it's like it's that instant reaction of a team to just drop 5, 10 yards and defend what you've got, which look, to an extent, I don't mind it as much. You have to be a little bit more conservative with how you're going to play, but I just would have liked to see West Ham continue to play on the front foot and continue to force and try and get that second goal rather than just sit really passively and allow Everton a lot more time on the ball, crosses into the box, and just causing unnecessary tension on the West Ham back line. And to be honest, like even though we did go passive, we defended really, really well. There wasn't many chances that Everton created between our goal and the 90th minute. But then we know what happened in the 90th minute, which we're going to go through in a second. But yeah, in general, we defended really, really well. It was really positive, really encouraging. But we just started to drift off. 5 minutes before the 90th minute, we were just drifting off a little bit. We were clearly getting fatigued, a little bit tired. And I think that's probably my main criticism of Graham Potter in this game is the lack of freshness that he brought off the bench. I know he was poised to make two subs, but just before we scored, and then he decides to change his mind. Fine, but he should have rotated quicker, and he should have rotated more frequently with the players that he had to freshen things up because we got a little bit fatigued. And yeah, 90th minute here, they had a corner, we push it out, and then we step up. So Soler's the first one to chase Idrissa Gana Gueye. He plays it square. And this is the first mistake in the sequence. So we're trying to press out, which is fine. But you can see that. So Kudus has come out to Mikalenko, which is absolutely fine. But then you've got Ward-Prowse and Bowen both drawn into that one Everton player, which then draws space and an extra man at the back post for Everton. So again, that's just a lack of communication. Only one player needs to really go out and press in that situation. But they go long into the box. It's a good volley and a great save from Areola here. And then we try and clear it. We do, and it gets to this situation. And this is where a couple of mistakes where you need to concentrate to the max in this situation. Otherwise, sequences like this can arise. Take nothing away from the goal. It's fantastically worked by Everton. But West Ham have to do better, and there's certain individuals in this sequence that don't do well enough. The first one I want to pay your attention to is Carlos Soler on Idrissa Gana Gueye. You can see there they're touch tight. Just before this, Soler's had a glance over his shoulder, so he knows exactly where he is. Gana Gueye makes the run to the back post. Soler doesn't follow him, which we'll see in the next clip. So that's mistake number one. And then number two, you can see, so Tarkowski at the back post, he's drifted onto Emerson. It's not a mistake. It's just something Everton have done, so that's fine. Kilman's then attached to Broja in the middle, number 22. And then you can see there the goal scorer in the end, O'Brien, on Todibo. So that's Todibo's man. He's touch tight. Perfect. Right. He's got him where he wants. Stay touch tight to him. Don't allow him any space, and we'll be fine in this situation. But he doesn't do that. And that's kind of the big two mistakes. Todibo almost just takes a step forwards, which then allows O'Brien to just kind of step behind him there and create that space. And you can see here, Carlos Soler, he's kind of gone into that middle zone, and Idrissa Gana Gueye is already making that run to the back post. So as soon as that ball's clipped in, he's then created that space for himself. And if we move it forwards here, you can see Soler's recognized that mistake. He's tried to get back into the center, but as this ball's coming across, look at Todibo's position. He is nowhere near. He's almost stood still. So Kilman and Mavropanos and Souček, they've gone back in, but Todibo stood still. He's just let his man go. So my first instinct was Mavropanos has lost his man in this sequence. Having watched it back, it wasn't his fault, really. It was Todibo's man. And then Mavropanos is trying to cover for that. But it's too late because O'Brien's already got into that space, a lack of communication from the West Ham defenders. And they score in the 90th minute and make it 1-1, and that's how it finishes. And you can see there Todibo's position. He's just too static in the middle of your pitch. And I actually thought Todibo played really, really well again, but that's a mistake. And if it was Mavropanos or Kilman, I'd be saying exactly the same thing. It's a mistake. And there's a few sequences there that we made mistakes in, and we just lost our concentration at a pivotal moment of the game. And yeah, it's frustrating to drop the points like we did, but to be honest, it wasn't the most entertaining of games. It wasn't the best performance from West Ham or Everton. And I feel like a draw was probably a fair result on balance. But it's so frustrating when you've worked so hard in that 20, 25-minute period after we scored to then throw it away like that just because of a couple of mistakes. It is frustrating, but it's really nicely worked from Everton as well. You can't take away from that. Every ball pass in that sequence and finish was fantastic. But yeah, it could have been stopped if Todibo just follows his man. And also Carlos Soler is more alert to that situation. But again, it's a really difficult one because Everton do work it very well. But yeah, Todibo has to do better in that situation. He has to recognise that danger as a centre-back. But yeah, we drew 1-1. There weren't too many outstanding performances, to be honest, across the board. I thought Emerson had a really, really good game. And especially because he's now got a little bit of pressure on him with Ollie Skiles having played the last 2 or 3 Premier League games as well and starting ahead of him. I feel like that competition's quite good for him. It's healthy competition. And I feel like the performance replicated that because Emerson hasn't really been good this season. He's been one that I've said has been switching off a lot and hasn't shown the levels that he was before in the previous campaign, especially the first few months of the previous season. But I feel like this game was one of his best performances of this season. I thought the whole back three did really, really well, to be honest. I thought Mavropanos, Kilman, and Todibo, they all had good games. But with Mavropanos, there's always a mistake. And we could have lost it at the end because of that mix-up with Mavropanos. And I can't remember who it was now. I think it might have been Ward-Prowse. And Everton could have won it after that equalizer. But that's the thing with Mavropanos. He'll do, 8 out of 10 things correct. But then he'll do, or 9 out of 10 things correct. But then that 10th one will be a key mistake that could cost your team. You can't have players like that is kind of like a ticking time bomb. So as much quality as someone like Mavropanos has, I wouldn't want to see him being a regular starter for West Ham. And Max Kilman is someone who I have to hold my hands up and say, I got that massively wrong in the summer. I was against paying 40 million for him. And I didn't see the quality that, I didn't see enough quality to warrant paying that for it to be our big centre-back money signing. He's been fantastic and he was excellent again against Everton. And he just brings a level of composure to that back line that we've never seen really in the last few seasons at West Ham. And Todibo on the other side as well provides that balance. So if we can just get that next centre back in the summer to complete that back three, we're looking at a really top level back three that we can work with under Graham Potter. But yeah, Max Kilman was fantastic. Wan-Bissaka again was hot and cold, but again, he did a lot of what was good yesterday for West Ham. The midfield three, Souček obviously got an important goal. Paqueta did okay. Ward-Prowse did okay, but it wasn't their best performances. And then Kudus and Bowen. I thought Bowen played, Bowen, when he does get contribution into the game, you can see the quality he has. And often he's the best player on the pitch in that aspect. In the first half, he wasn't really in the game. Kudus, I thought worked really hard. First half, he was just holding onto the ball too much, which I've said thousands of times. He needs to release the ball quicker. But second half, he was definitely involved in a lot, and he was trying to make things happen. It's just not sitting for him at the moment. But I don't think it was his worst performance at all. I thought he played quite well. But Everton were definitely identifying him as a danger, and as I kind of already showed, doubling up, tripling up on him at times in that first half to nullify his strengths. But I thought they worked well, and I just don't think it's either of their strengths to play in this front two. I think they can work quite well together when we're countering, but in large, Kudus is probably better in that number 10 position, and Jared Bowen's definitely better on the right-hand side. But they're both kind of compensating and trying to fit into this Graham Potter system at the moment, which is a 3-5-2. But yeah, let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the performance. And, having analysed this back with myself, is there anything from here that you'd pick out and maybe say we need to work on that, or I'm encouraged by that under Graham Potter? I feel like the verdict's still very much out, or jury's still very much out for Graham Potter. It's extremely early days. I'm not going to take anything from it. What I'm going to take as the positives is we look a lot more structured. We've stopped leaking thousands of goals, but there's obviously work to do the other end of the pitch in terms of pressing higher, creating more goal scoring opportunities, and imposing ourselves more on teams. But that will come with time. That will come with recruitment. That will come with players getting familiar with how Graham Potter wants to play. I have no doubt about that. So yeah, we'll see. But we've now got a rest up. We've got, I think it's the international break next, which is good to see Jared Bowen back in that squad. Hopefully he doesn't get injured, touch wood. And yeah, then we've got some big games coming up after that. But we're pretty much safe now. We've said it before and keep saying it's pretty much a pre-season for West Ham now on Graham Potter. Just try and pick up as many points as we can, try and finish as high up as we can, and then go into next season with a positive mindset and identify where we need to recruit, how we need to recruit. And we keep saying it, but it's going to be another big rebuild for West Ham this summer transfer window. So yeah, Everton won, West Ham won. I would have liked 3 points against David Moyes, on his return. It was great that he got a nice reception as well from the West Ham fans at the end. So yeah, that was a nice token of appreciation from both sides. And obviously the massive respect is still there from the West Ham fan base, which is nice to see. But yeah, 1-1, we take it. Frustrating to lose it in the last minutes, but we go again. We rest up after the international break, and then we've got a few games back to back to start April as well. So yeah, if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel for more content, And until the next time, come on, you Irons.